We are back with the Europa League predictions this year, and I've seen so many people asking me about uploading these, so here we are. We're gonna start off with Matchday 1 matches, and we got some decent ones like Nottingham Forest versus Real Betis and Nice against Roma. That's probably gonna be a pretty good one, but anyway, let's get right into it. Let's not waste any more time. First off, Midtjylland versus Sturm Graz. I have a feeling this match could go either way, so let's get started with Midtjylland. I think that's how you pronounce it, but I feel like they have always been a underrated team in the respective league. They're actually sitting first at the moment, scoring 23 goals in 9 matches. That's actually outrageous. So we got one of the highest scoring teams coming into the competition here. One player that stands out for me is obviously Philip Billing coming from Bournemouth. Now on to Sturm Graz. This is a team who did not too bad in the Champions League. They are now here in the Europa League. They have started the season not too bad, sitting second in the Austrian League, and they just came off a win against Salzburg, which is huge. Could be one of the most underrated teams in the competition as well. As I said, they did not too bad in the Champions League, so my prediction is going to be a 2-1 win for Midtjylland. Now PAOK versus Tel Aviv. Not really sure what to expect here. Let's get started with PAOK. This is a team coming from Greece. Now they are currently sitting in first place in their league. At the moment they are unbeaten with 3 wins and 1 draw, so in a lot of their games they dominate the ball while also having many shots both off and on target. So I'm just super curious on how they will play in the Europa League, probably because it's a step up in terms of the Greek league. But on to Tel Aviv. This is a team coming from Israel. They're doing pretty well in the respective league, winning 4 matches out of 4, being unbeaten, and they seem defensively strong, conceding only 2 goals in 4 matches. So similar to PAOK, they seem to have loads of shots and they just aim to control the game and control the possession as well. But my prediction is going to be a 1-1 draw. I think it's going to be pretty even. Moving on to Malmo versus Ludogorets. Now this game should be a exciting one, so let's get started with Malmo. They have not been too good in the league, currently sitting in 6th place, which I would say is okay, but they did lose their last game to Djurgården. I think that's how we pronounce it, but they qualified for this competition, beating a team named Sigma 5-0. I also do recognize this team, as obviously Zlatan Ibrahimovic used to play there. Onto Ludogorets. I've seen this team around European competitions, but they are doing not too bad this season, sitting in 3rd place in their league, and also to add on to it, they are unbeaten, which is a good thing to head into the Europa League with. Now their past 2 games have been draws, so maybe they could bring the form back though. But my prediction is going to be a 2-1 win for Ludogorets. Moving on to Braga versus Feyenoord. This game is probably going to be one of the most underrated games, so let's get started with Braga. Braga coming into this competition not too good, coming off a 1-1 draw against Vitória, but while also sitting in 7th place in the Portuguese league. They got some decent players in João Victor coming from Barcelona, but Gabriel Moscardo, a talented young midfielder coming from PSG on loan. Now Braga have struggled for results recently though, so this might be a tough game for them. But on to Feyenoord. This team, I could see them doing well from here, starting off their season in very good form. Got a very solid player in Quinten Timber, basically Jurriën Timber's twin brother. But I also find this club an underrated one coming up in Europe. I just feel like they know how to play football but also get results. So they qualified as they lost to Fenerbahce 6-4 on aggregate in the Champions League qualifying round. So my prediction is going to be a 3-1 win for Feyenoord. Moving on to Real Betis versus Nottingham Forest, one of the biggest games this week. So let's get started with Real Betis. Coming into this competition in alright form, they have now signed Anthony on a permanent deal, so the fans literally treat him like a legend of the club after last season and the stuff he did last season. Unreal stuff. But Betis lost the Conference League final 4-1 to Chelsea last season, and they are one of the teams to look out for. I feel like they're a pretty decent team overall. Their team looks quite good on paper and on the field as well. But on to Nottingham Forest, first time in Europe for them since 1996. That's crazy. They are a quality team, honestly, but changes have been made. They have sacked Nuno Espirito Santo due to tension between him and the ownership, and now Angie has come in. Honestly, I expect them to have this team playing a more attacking style of football, so expect to see a higher line, I guess, probably at the halfway line. They got new signings in Igor Jesus, Douglas Luiz, I believe, on loan, in Doya. Those are quality signings right there. But let's see if maybe Angie could win the Europa League again. Imagine back-to-back seasons with two different clubs. Outrageous. Now my prediction is going to be a 2-1 win for Nottingham Forest. Moving on to Freiburg versus Basel. This game could be quite a good one, so let's get started with Freiburg. They've started the season not too well, sitting in 7th place in the Bundesliga. Their past 2 matches, they have gotten wins, but they are in some good form going into this. Vincent Griffo has been there for ages. He will be a difference maker in this team. On to Basel. I haven't seen this team in Europe for a while, for being honest. They seem to be doing well in their league, sitting 3rd place at the moment, but they lost to Copenhagen 3-1 on aggregate for the Champions League playoffs, which put them into the Europa League. Now in the league, they seem to be in pretty good form though, so they could take that into this game, but still I see this game ending as a 1-1 draw. Moving on to Dynamo Zagreb versus Fenerbahce. Now this one surely will be a banger, so let's get started with Dynamo Zagreb. They seem to be doing well in the league, sitting 1st place at the moment with only 1 loss, scoring 15 goals and conceding 4 so far. So this is a team who did decent last season in the Champions League. I expect them to do a lot better in the Europa League, but they got a player in Benakur who's from AC Milan. I think he could be a real difference maker in that midfield. Now on to Fenerbahce. They seem to be starting the season well, sitting 3rd place in the league, being unbeaten, and this is one of the most underrated teams probably in the competition. I believe we gotta watch out for them in the Europa League. Even though Mourinho was actually sacked a few games ago, they still got loads of quality. They have John Duran in there, Marco Asensio, they got Ederson as well. But my prediction is going to be a 2-1 win for Dynamo Zagreb. Now moving into Crvena Zvezda versus Celtic. This could be another tight match, so let's get started with Crvena Zvezda. They have started the season quite well, sitting top of the league at 7-0, scoring 30 goals and conceding 5 goals. That is quite impressive, but last season they struggled in the Champions League though. Like Oljanika is always a standout player, I feel like, for the club, but they've got Arnautovic now as well. Now on to Celtic. They have started the season well, currently sitting top of the league unbeaten, but they did struggle in the Champions League last season, but they did better last season than the season before, so they got some quality players now coming in from like loans or something. Tierney has come in, Iheanacho has come in, and Jota from the Saudi League has come in. So those are pretty good signings, but my prediction is going to be a 3-2 win for Crvena Zvezda. Moving on to Nice versus Roma. This game could be one of the best. So let's get started with Nice. Their season has started not too well, sitting in 12th place in the league on losing to Brest 4-1 in the last game. So not the best start, but they have players like Dante and Dembele. Klaus Bombito is a very underrated Canadian center back. I feel like they're gonna start well in the Europa League. Now onto Roma. I believe this might be one of the favorites in the competition. They have started this season quite well, sitting 4th place in their league, and they now have a new manager in Gasparini. So he's coming from Atalanta, and I rate him a lot due to his Atalanta days. He got in 9th place in the league phase last season with Atalanta in the Champions League, but before that he won the Europa League with Atalanta as well. But this Roma team has lots of quality. They have Dybala, Ferguson, Dovbyk, Leon Bailey as well. Just that attack is absolutely incredible, for being honest. But my prediction is going to be a 3-1 win for Roma. Moving on to Go Ahead Eagles versus FCSB. This could be one of the most interesting games. So let's get started with Go Ahead Eagles. That's a very interesting name. But they are a team coming from Netherlands. They have not started the season too well. To be fair, sitting in 9th place in their league. I would say their form recently has been impressive, but I'm sure they will take that into the Europa League. But I haven't seen this team play at all, so I'm just interested to see like their play style and everything, their tactics, how they set up, just everything. Now on to FCSB. They have not been doing too bad this season. I'll be honest, I've not watched this team once. I'm not really sure how good of a team they are, but based on their recent form, they seem solid. But we will have to see yet another time with this team, how they set up and how they play. Now my prediction is going to be a 2-1 win for FCSB. Moving on to Lille versus Brann. This should be a very interesting game. So let's get started with Lille. They have started this season not bad. I would say sitting in 5th place in the league. Last season though, they were very underrated in the Champions League, finishing around 7th place, which qualified them for the round of 16. Now the loss of Jonathan David is actually a tough one, because he was one of their main goal scorers. He was one of the top goal scorers last season in the Champions League, so that's a huge loss for them. On to Brann. I've never heard about this team before, but they seem to be doing well in their league. I believe they are a team from Norway, and their last game they actually lost 5-2 to Salzburg on aggregate in the Champions League qualifying like round or phase, whatever you want to call it. But that's why they are in the Europa League now. So let's see how they set up as well in the Europa League, as this is a new team I haven't really seen in Europe before. Now my prediction is going to be a 2-0 win for Lille. Moving on to Ferencváros versus Victoria. This could be quite the decent game. So let's get started with Ferencváros. They are a team coming from the Hungarian league. Starting this season not too bad, sitting 4th in their league with only 1 loss. I believe they have played in the Club World Cup as well. They had a good campaign there. Honestly, I never knew that Naby Keita plays for this club. His downfall has actually been crazy. It's quite sad to see. But on to Victoria. Now this team coming in from Czech. Form-wise, they have been alright, sitting in 4th in their league, but they just came off a loss against Sparta Praha 2-1. But they have a player who I haven't seen for quite a while in Matej Vidra. Very solid player with Prem experience. He used to play for Burnley for a few seasons, but I guess now he is back in the Czech league. But my prediction is going to be a 1-1 draw between the two. Moving on to RB Salzburg versus Porto. This one should be a very solid game. So let's get started with RB Salzburg. Their season has not started too well, sitting in 5th place in a league where they should be top, coming off a 2-0 loss against Sturm Graz quality side. Usually in the recent seasons in the Champions League, they seem to struggle. So maybe in the competition they might do better this time. But on to Porto. They have started very well this season. They're actually unbeaten and they sit at the top the Portuguese league. So usually a very underrated team coming in from Europe, I mean, usually they do pretty well. But they brought in this summer Luke De Jong from PSV. That guy's been scoring goals for a while now. Also Kivior, who's a very good signing. Now De Jong has been a proven goal scorer for many seasons. He's got the experience. Kivior, a very solid young center back, and he's very good with the ball at his feet. Now my prediction is going to be a 3-1 win for Porto. Moving on to Stuttgart versus Celta Vigo. This game could be a tight one, so let's get started with Stuttgart. They've started this season not bad. Now, sitting in 8th place for the Bundesliga is not ideal for them, but they have lost Woltmade, who is a huge player in attack for them. They still have Angelo Stiller, who is a quality player. Now, Undav has proven he can bang goals as well when he wants to, so the coach is a pretty underrated one. But on to Celta Vigo. They're doing horrible. Like, it's not looking good for them, sitting in 15th place in the La Liga. They used to be a way better side, but I don't know what happened. They have the quality in the team, which is crazy to me, but they're sitting 15th. It's hard to fathom, if we're being honest. Iago Aspas has been banging goals for seasons upon seasons. He has not started this season too well. Marcus Alonso is a Prem proven wingback, but maybe he's falling off a little bit due to his age. Who knows, but it's quite crazy for me to see this team doing bad. But my prediction is going to be a 2-0 win for Stuttgart. Moving on to Utrecht versus Lyon. Now, this game, it might be a little bit of a dull one, honestly. So let's get started with Utrecht. Not exactly the best start to the season for them. 8th place in the Eredivisie is quite tough. Coming off a 1-0 loss to Fortuna Sittard. I have not heard of that team before, but apparently they are in the Eredivisie. But I've not seen too much of Utrecht, I mean. But it will be interesting to see, like, once again, how they play, how they set up with all that stuff. And we'll have more information in the following video. Now on to Lyon. They're doing quite well this season in the league, actually sitting in 3rd place behind Monaco and PSG. They were so close to being relegated and knocked out of Europe due to financial issues, but those were solved through a appeal, and their appeal was successful. So yeah, they're here back in the Europa League. We're back in Europe, and they're actually 3rd place in the Ligue 1, which, what a turnaround. But it's crazy to see Nicolas Tagliafico is still at the club. Taliso is quality as well. He's been there for years, but they did lose a huge talent in Cherokee to Man City. But what can you do? If they got like money from that, they could reinvest it into other talents. So my prediction is going to be a 2-1 win for Lyon. Moving on to Rangers versus Genk. This one could be going one way or the other. So let's get started with Rangers. They're doing not too good at all. Honestly, they have fallen off the past few seasons. I remember them being in a Europa League final a few years ago. Now they sit 11th place in the league. Fall off has been crazy, but they have a talented player in Asgard who has come off a hat-trick for Norway. So definitely a huge talent to keep an eye on. But then Mikey Moore is also on a season loan from Spurs, so that's probably huge in terms of experience for Mikey Moore. So it's gonna get to develop a little bit more, but also get game time. Now on to Genk. They're struggling this season. It looks like sitting in 14th place in the Belgian league. Their last game they actually lost versus Union Saint-Gilloise, which is a solid team, very underrated team in Europe, and they had talents over the years, but they lost them. They had, I believe, De Ketelaere, Noah Lang, I think, in there. Most of those talents are gone, and they're gone to other clubs, so it's going to be interesting how they set up against Rangers. Now my prediction is going to be a 1-1 draw. Moving on to Aston Villa versus Bologna. This game could be one of the biggest ones, so let's get started with Aston Villa. They've had a very rough start to the season. Sitting 18th in the league is actually wild, like, especially with the quality you have in that team. They managed to score their first goal this season, or in the Prem season, versus Sunderland. It came from Matty Cash. Honestly, it was horrible keeping. Matty Cash just trotted straight at the keeper, and the keeper just parried it into his own net. But Watkins and Rodgers have started slow this season. We have not seen them get a single goal or assist. Like, it's been rough for them. Onto Bologna, not the best start to the season for them as well. Sitting in 11th place in the Serie A. Not ideal. They came off a 2-1 win against Genoa, which they could take into this game. But they have a goal-proven striker in Immobile, who's been scoring for years. He's been at Lazio. He's been scoring at least like 15 to 20 goals in the Serie A. Now also Bernardeschi coming from Toronto FC, a great creator and also scorer from the wing. So he was probably one of the main creators and scorers at TFC. So those two will make a huge difference attacking wise for sure. But my prediction is going to be a 2-1 win for Bologna. Moving on to Young Boys versus Panathinaikos. I believe that's how you say it. This game, genuinely, I don't know which way it's going to go. So let's get started with Young Boys. Their season has started not too bad. Currently, they're sitting in 4th place in the Swiss League. So they have been in form as well, which is a positive coming into the Europa League. But I gotta admit, they have struggled to honestly play in Europe in the recent years. But both in the Champions League and Europa League, they have struggled massively. I believe last season they finished close to the bottom, if not the bottom of the table in the Europa League. So they gotta show us something this time. Now onto Panathinaikos. This is a team coming in from Greece, so let's just say their season has not been the best so far. They are sat in 12th place in the Greek league. They have come off a 1-1 draw against Olympiacos. They have quality like Tete, Calabria, and also Renato Sanchez. Renato Sanchez is a name I've not heard for a while. He used to be such a big talent, but I'm not sure what happened. Maybe some injuries happened, or I believe he moved to Bayern after that like huge performance in Euro 2016 or something. Just had a little bit of a fall off. Now my prediction is going to be a 2-1 win against Panathinaikos. So thank you guys for watching. Hopefully you did enjoy the video. And don't forget to drop a like, comment down below your predictions for these games, and don't forget to subscribe as well. I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.